It doesn't matter how much the chess community likes to tell each other, forget openings, just do tactics puzzles, don't blunder. You're never, ever, 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 ever going to stop lower rated players, amateur players from studying them. In the era of YouTubers, Twitch streamers, and AIs like Stockfish, you can bet your life people are going to come prepared. And so one of the simple things that you can do in your chess journey is to just dump the major openings. I reached a peak rating of 1647 chess.com rapid in less than 500 games. It was not bad for a guy with 2 little kids. And what I did around the 12 to 1400 mark was abandon the major openings and start playing b3 with the white pieces and b6 against everything with the black pieces. And what I noticed was that my opponents were forced to think on their feet, and due to this, they started making a lot of mistakes. And so I'm going to show you 3 of my games in less than 10 minutes where this is happening, and stick around to the end because I'm going to talk to you about the downsides of doing this. Obviously, this is not free. Playing minor openings or sidelines carries a cost, and so we'll discuss that at the end. Okay, guys, we've got a 7-move thriller here against Radicate42 on chess.com, and I can tell you this person has logged over 7,000 games on the platform, and so is an experienced player. We have b3, following Adaban Baskran's chessboard course, d5. Okay, the alternative is e5, bishop b2, c5, very good move. If you have the opportunity to play c5 with the black pieces, you should. e3, you kind of have to. d4 would be way too annoying. In this position, bishop f5, okay, knight f3, e6, and it's in this position that I start to get the feeling that my opponent is making stuff up. Very typical when you're playing these kind of sidelines, minor openings. Here, it's not clear that this bishop belongs outside the pawn chain, maybe liable to attack as well. And now we have knight to e5, a little bit of a premature attack, but it does carry a threat. The threat is bishop to b5, check. And my opponent needs to be playing something like knight to e7 or a6. Instead, they're just thinking about their bishop. They play this move h6, and now bishop b5 check. And in this position, they need to play this horrible move king to e7. Okay, they can fight on, but instead they play knight to c6, and of course they're going to lose a rook in the process. And so you've got to ask yourself, how is it that a person with over 7,000 games on the platform does this? And I think it's because they are unfamiliar with what's going on. They haven't seen this a lot. And you've got to ask yourself, if you had played some of the major openings like the Italian game or the London system in its conventional setup, is my opponent going to make this type of error early on? I don't think so. Okay, so here we go. Switch over to lead chess now. Rapid game. My opponent opens up with e4. I know, Donald. So boring. We have b6, b6 against everything, following Lawrence Trent's chessboard course. We have d4, principal thing to do. Bishop b7, bishop d3, very good move. e6, c4, and already a wrinkle here for white. They're totally unfamiliar with the position, and this is an inaccuracy. It's not losing, but it's a wrinkle, and the reason is because the light square bishop is going to have to give itself up. And you're wondering how? Because of knight to c6. This pawn is hanging, and after they defend it, we have knight to b4, and the bishop can't move because it has to maintain defense of this e4 square. And so they play this move. They should just really develop, and we've given up, white has given up its bishop, which isn't winning, but you've gained something out of this opening, which is that bishop on d3 is often staring at h7, which is annoying for players with the black pieces. And note, you have your bishop, which can be menacing in the game. And so you'll feel quite comfortable in this position. If you're wondering over here, why can't you play d5? Obviously, then knight to b4 is not useful because the bishop is blunted, doesn't have access to the e4 square. Well, after d5, you have knight to e5, and now the bishop can't move because it has to maintain defense of the c4 square. And so you see, it doesn't matter which way you look at this, either white gives up a pawn or white gives up its bishop. And this is all because they don't understand the opening. And in this position, my opponent plays knight to g5. Don't know what that's about. h6, e5, just throwing away a pawn. We have takes, we're up a pawn. Knight to e4, trying to gain their material back. Okay, we can give up the light square bishop. I don't know if that's the best move. Queen to takes e4, d5, strike in the center. It's important when you play some of these sidelines that you learn to strike in the center, which is very difficult to do. I still get it wrong. We have d5, queen takes d5, queen exchange, we're up a pawn. The position is far from trivial, but it is now when they hang their bishop and they resign. And so, again, in this position, you got to ask yourself, this fourth move here from white, c4, a person with 2,000 games on lead chess, do they make this type of move with some of the major openings? I don't think so. Okay, so third and final game here, we have b3, knight f6 from my opponent. Very good move here. Bishop b2. One of the ideas here should be to play g6, bishop g7, and completely neutralize this dark square bishop. They play knight c6, threatening to play e5. It's too late. You had your chance to play e5 in this position, and Now after knight to c6, we can play knight to f3, having double control over this square. They realize this, they play d6, threatening to play e5 again. We can stop it. How? We play d4, and now if they play e5, we're going to have takes and a whole exchange here, a queen exchange, and we're just going to win a pawn. They realize this, they play bishop to g4. It doesn't work because we can just push this pawn up the board. We have d5, and now they give up their light square bishop. E takes f3, the knight moves. f4, the knight has to move g3, getting ready to fianchetto the light square bishop and take control over this e4 square. Also pose some threats here along this diagonal. c6, perhaps the worst possible move you can make in this position. Knight to c3, bishop g2, h5, not paying attention to this threat. And now, of course, we have d takes c6, and they can't take because they're going to lose their rook in the process. And so, won't go through all the gory details, just fast forward a few moves. They're completely lost, and they definitely are lost when they just hang their queen. But again, you just got to roll it back to when it's just two knights on the board and ask yourself again, somebody's 1900 elite chess rapid, they know things about chess. However, they are definitely in this position just thinking on their feet, and that's my point. Okay, so what's the catch with doing stuff like this? Obviously, the major openings are the major openings for a reason. If you play them accurately, play them well, you have very good positions. If you do what I do, then if your opponent knows what they're doing, they're just going to shut you down. And so let me give you an example of annoying lines that you have to deal with after e4, b6, d4, bishop b7, bishop d3, very good move, e6, knight f3, d5, white plays this annoying move, e5. It doesn't matter which way you look at it, this light squared is a terrible bishop. Maybe c5 is a move here, but if you turn on the engine, black is just better. Better. And so in this position, what Trent talks about is bishop to a6 and just trade it off. But after bishop takes a6, knight takes a6, c3, queen a4, check, wins this knight. So you have to play something like queen to d7 or move your knight back. And now I think one of the top engine moves is h4. And white is taking advantage of the fact that black has a lack of kingside development. And so are you going to see a lot of this below 2000? I haven't seen it a lot in my games. And so it's fine playing these openings. As my rating improves, maybe I have to go back to playing the major openings. But hopefully you enjoyed that video. Thank you very much for your time.